Okay, my name's Sean from Fire Security, and I have Reto with us, our South American partner, and we're going to be talking about cable coating today, specifically our FS15 cable coating. So what we'd like to do is start off the process of running through our PowerPoint presentation. So let's get started. Rito, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
That's the way. Okay, so let's get this underway. So our FS15 cable coating. It's an ablative cable coating, not new to the market. It's been here for a while, but it's like I said, it's an ablative cable coating. And ablative is basically the same chemical type of reaction that dry ice has. What it does is it lets non-toxic, non-hazardous gas under heat come out of the coating, and that starves the oxygen around the cable. And therefore, with no oxygen, the fire does not spread. It is not an intumescent, which is the other variation of cable coats, intumescent cable coating, which we do have, our FS11, which we will talk about in a different presentation. Protects through insulation and expansion. Ablative does not expand. It protects through a chemical reaction. So,
is it solvent-based ablative coating always?
No, our ablative coatings, like most ablative coatings, are non-toxic, non-hazardous water-based coating.
Okay.
And the good thing about most cable coatings, including even our FS11 intumescent coating, is that they're stir and spray. So the pail that you have on your site, you would open the lid, stir thoroughly, and spray straight away or brush straight away. They don't need to have anything added to them. There's no dilution whatsoever. If there was, you would only put up to 5% water in, but the pail you buy is the pail you spray. You actually don't need anything to add to it.
Okay. If you have a pail which is for some time open, would you have to kind of dilute it?
Diluted? No. If you've opened a pail and you have,
for lunch, for example, or something,
you've used half a pail, for instance, and you want to put that away for the night, you can put a quarter of a cup or half a cup of just water, plain tap water, over the top of the coating so it doesn't skin off. But it's not overly necessary. It's just that if it's going to sit in a warehouse for a couple of days, you just want to protect the top of that coating.
Okay.
But it has the shelf life for over 2 years, so nothing's going to happen as long as it's stored in its proper temperatures, which is +5 to +30. Anything over that may heat the cable coating, and you do not want it to freeze, because once the water within the coating has frosted, then the coating's rendered useless.
Okay.
It can't defrost. It takes away the fire protection additives.
Yeah, chances are not that big in Latin America.
No, I don't think so. I think we have a heat issue, but not a frost issue.
That's right.
But we do have to be aware with that frost issue of when we ship, because sitting in a 20-foot container outside of Hamburg on a ship may be -10 or -20 in winter, so we have to be aware of that situation of when we ship.
Understood.
So, to some of the technicalities of our FS15 cable coat, we're very happy with our extremely low dry film thickness. DFT is dry film thickness of 1 millimeter. We do have an FM thickness of 1.6 millimeters, but like all FM products, regardless of what they are, where they come from, or how they're made, FM only tests any type of cable coat at 1.6 millimeters. They do not award you for being technologically advanced. They simply test at 1.6. Our 1 millimeter DFT is for our IEC approvals, 331-21 and -23, which is for the fire protection of electrical cables, not just the spread of flame. It's also for our 90-minute fire rating. In the next few slides, you'll see some vast differences in spread rates and thicknesses compared to some of our competitors. But for our spread rates, you'll see here at 1.8 to 1.85 kilograms per meter squared. That doesn't include wastage. Most of the time you'll find that when we do quote work, we do include wastage, which is 2.4 kilograms per square meter of surface area. So we are always mindful that the end user wants to know what his final supply and install price is. So what we do is include that wastage figure, so they're not going to get any nasty surprises when they buy the product and put it on and then realise through overspray and round cables and all of those sort of things that they're suddenly short. So that's why we include a wastage factor in it.
Right. Is this a typical wastage for spraying or for painting?
Well, for hand painting or for brush painting, there's rarely a lot of wastage, maybe 10%, because everything on your brush is going onto the cable. But most of the applications you'll find are spray applications. And when you're looking at the tip of a gun that's spraying, maybe has a 2 or 3 inch fan on the end of the tip. I mean, when you look at the when you're spraying something, it sprays out in a triangle. So the top of the triangle might be anywhere, it might be 5-inch fan, but when you're spraying a 1-inch cable, you're only hitting 1 inch compared to the 5 inches you're spraying out. So there's your wastage factor in itself,
Right.
If they're single cables.
And at what distance would you have to tip to the cable or cable tray?
Usually around 30 centimeters.
And it's perpendicular?
Yeah. And well, yes, it is. And but like cable trays, which you'll see on the next slide or the slide after, nothing is flat. Even when you look at this picture that we have in the presentation, all of the cable trays are all ridged. There's cables underneath, so there's rarely flat surfaces. And when you're spraying up to the edge of a cable, you'll find that you're going to have overspray. But then again, an extremely skilled applicator will spray maybe 15 to 20% wastage. Average applicators are up around the 30% wastage. So we've got to. You're always as good as your slowest runner.
Right.
So we always make sure that we quote with enough to take care of it. So as we move down that line, so the fire rated cables up to 90 minutes at only 1 millimeter dry film thickness. The FS15 carries its FM approval, and it carries its IEC approvals, which is 21 and 23 for the fire rating of an electrical cable. DNV approved for marine applications, and we have LEED approval for green building technology, which is extremely good because it's an independent test which shows that we carry absolutely 0 VOCs within our cable coating. It's non-toxic and non-hazardous. So even shipping, it's not a hazmat issue. It's just a water-based coating. I mean, I would need it, of course, but can't be great to ingest, but it definitely won't do any harm to you.
Okay. And VOC being?
It's the chemical content, volatile chemical content. Right. So we have nothing that's we have no chemical in it that's under a VOC list. It doesn't produce off gases. Even FS15 in its wet or cured state or under heat and fire produces 0 VOC and non-toxic, non-hazardous.
Yeah. Okay.
For instance, one of our competitors, who I won't mention, has an expandable polyurethane PU foam that's fire rated or fire stopping, like 2 or 3 hour fire rating. It stops a fire dead in its tracks. There's no issues about that. But the off gas coming when it's burning is extremely toxic.
Wow.
So you know it's important for us to let everyone know that regardless of what form the FS15 takes, whether it's wet, dry, or fully cured, or under fire, there's zero toxicity to it.
Okay.
So when we move along, the application of FS15 can be on high voltage, low voltage, controller data cable, any type of electrical cable, big or small, single or in tray, or just simply in bundled together with cable ties. It gets placed on the exterior surface of the cable bundle or the cable tray, similar to this trefoil application right here in the bottom corner. You'll see that the trefoils, which are 3 extremely high voltage cable, we just coat around the external surface of it. And we coat around the external surface of it is because the flame spread is coming from another region. Rarely will a cable ignite within itself. It does happen, of course. It does arc, but that's a very, very rare circumstance. And if it does, for instance, a cable does start a fire within itself underneath the cable coating, you'll find that the cable coating does the reverse job. It stops it from spreading from the inside out. So as soon as that flame hits the cable coating on the inside, it'll diffuse itself. There's simply no oxygen within that environment for a fire to breathe.
Okay.
So as we said a little earlier, the cable coating is water-based. There is 0 solvents. Its color is white. It is colorable, though, to a certain amount of tint. If a customer has a request for pink cables, green cables, blue cables, we can coat color the cable coating. We can only color it to a certain degree because the more tint or paint you put into your cable coating, the less ability the fire retardant has to do its job. Okay. So we only tint it to a small amount. So the product.
So how is that if you have, for example, Sean, maintenance and you go every year over it, and is there a limit of what you can do? You will need to replace the cable coating eventually?
No, the only time that you would really ever need to replace the FS15 is if a cable's been removed and there's an opening between cables out of the tray. Then you would just come along and you would brush coat and patch that area, seal up the system again, effectively recreating the integrity of the cable coating. Or if there's been a fire, you would and the cable coating has activated itself, not unlike this area here within this picture. Once that flame's been extinguished, you may find that the area from here to here has been damaged. So, but the cable hasn't been damaged. You would pull away the existing cable coat and just repaint that area.
Okay.
The density of FS15 is 1.28 to approximately 1.35, so it's a plus or minus, but I average it around about the 1.3 mark. So what that really means is 1 kilogram, or 1 litre of FS15 equals 1.3 to 1.35 kilograms. So it weighs, 1 litre weighs a little bit heavier than 1 litre. It weighs 1.3 kilograms.
Yep.
And it carries a 70 to 75% solids value. So effectively 75% solids, 25% water. Our shelf life is 2 years. We package in 25 kilogram pails or 5 gallon or 18.9 gallons. 18.9 litres or 5 gallon pails. Interior or exterior applications, water and saltwater resistant, which is part of the FM test. There's a saltwater immersion test within the FM test, and effectively what that does is they immerse the cable coating on cable into a pail of salt water. and then to see how pliable it becomes, if it's doughy or it comes off the cable. Then they pull it out, let it recure, and ignite it to see if it still carries all of its fire retardant properties, which of course, as we have the approval, it does. Intumescence, which like our FS15, intumescence, they do not do well in a moist area. Water takes away their fire protection properties because the water, they need that water or dried water within their cured state to ignite the intumescent and expand the cable coating. That's why you will find that no intumescents carry an FM approval. So FS15, it's also resistant to fuels, oils, chemicals of various varying degrees. It does not derate the cable system.
How is that? Because you're insulating it to some extent, isn't it?
Okay, so I'm gonna hold you off on that, I think, until the next slide, because that's where I'm going to talk about duration. So, and as we discussed, the coating is ablative, non-intumescent. Intumescent means that it expands and protects by insulation. Ablative protects by chemical reaction. And the chemical reaction, as I said earlier, is a release under heat at around, the cable coating activates at approximately 80 to 85 degrees Celsius. That's when it starts its chemical reaction and releases its non-toxic, non-hazardous gases around the cable, which stops flame spreading because it takes away all of the oxygen within that region. Therefore, there's zero flame spread of the cable. And of course, we can apply by brush or spray, spray being the best method, the most economical method, and the method to get the job done in a timely fashion. And also, spray application always looks a lot better and as a finished product than brushing will. So, here we talk about FS15 as not derating a cable or a cable tray. So as shown, whether in this group, in this bundle, and or this cable tray, when you are applying FS15 to its 1mm DFT, even to its 1.6mm FM dry film thickness, you're extending the cable surface. Currently you have a cable surface here, and when you're extending the cable surface, you are creating a greater area on the outside diameter of heat dissipation. So you're extending the diameter of the cable, creating a greater surface area for the heat to dissipate out and keep that cable cool. A cable is rated...
Is this also valid for intumescence for inside applications?
Yes, it is. It does that without any without any issue. So our FS11 cable coating, our intumescent cable coating, also doesn't derate your cable system. Obviously, if you put 40mm of the coating on top of it, you are creating an extremely heavy blanket, and you're not giving the cable the ability to breathe. But at its regulated thicknesses of 1 or 1.6mm, no, there's no issue. It doesn't derate your cable system, and in some respects you may find that a greater amount of heat is dissipating out of that cable, more so than what it was before, because your surface of dissipation is greater.
Okay.
And the same applies for... Sorry.
I've got another question. If I look at the cable tray, I mean, normally the cables are already in the cable tray, and you spray on top of the cables, basically?
Yes.
How does the product get in between the cables and to the bottom of the tray?
There's no need for it to get in between the cables. Obviously, it appears so in this drawing, but that's a drawing itself. All you are doing is effectively spraying all around the surface itself and protecting the surface area from external fire. Because you are effectively wrapping a blanket, encasing that cable tray, the external surface of that cable tray in coating, no flame can get into that cable tray, and in reverse, no flame can get out of that cable tray. So there is zero oxygen in this area once you have encased that cable tray.
Okay.
So there is no possible way that a fire can get out and or a fire can get in. Because when you, if we flip back to here, you'll see what the cable coating does under fire. Now this is a gas burner, so it's running at around 1600 degrees Celsius. There's zero flame spread.
Yeah.
Okay, it will eventually burn away either side, and eventually after 90 minutes get through to your cable and lose your integrity. But what it's not doing is spreading the flame.
Yeah.
And that same thing will apply to the base of your tray, to the top of your cable. Therefore, this is why we only encase the cables. We don't pull out the cables, we don't coat them separately. There's absolutely no point to it. There's no point to it. It's an absolute waste of money for the end user to have to pay for something like that.
Okay.
So when we come to charts against our competitors and other manufacturers of cable coatings, we find that due to our low DFT and spread rate of FS15, there is a vast difference in us against the industry standards. So as you'll see here, industry standard on average is 1.6 millimeters, and this is for propagation of flame spread under FM approval. Ours, of course, under FM approval is 1.6, but we also have our fire rating approval under IEC, which is 1 millimeter. Therefore, why would we sell a spread of flame coating at 1.6 when we can sell our fire rated coating at 1 millimeter? As we discussed before, our spread rate without wastage is 1.85 kilograms. 1.6 millimeter dry film thickness spread rate is 3 kilograms per square meter to achieve that thickness. FS15 with wastage at 2.4 kilograms. Spread rate for 1.6 dry film thickness is 4.5 kilograms. That's a major difference in product requirement. So FS15 adds 1.2 kilograms per square meter in dry weight after curing to a tray. The competitors at 1.6 add 1.75 to 1.8 actually per square meter, I'm being fair to them, in dry weight to trays. FS15 gives you a 62.5% saving in overall product requirement if you use FS15. Obviously 62.5% more for the competitors. Yeah. What this means logistically, excuse me, not just in spraying coating, applying a coating, time to put it down, all of those things that are actual on-site issues, people tend to forget, or end users and installers tend to forget that with less product there's less freight, there's less logistics, there's less hassles for them. They don't have, when we're talking about 65, and you'll see in one of the last slides the equations, you know, with 62.5% less product, that's 62.5% less freight that they may have to pay. And that's very important.
Space as well.
Sorry?
Less warehouse space as well.
That's right. So there's also in that saving, there's less man hours to install it. Where you have a 1.6 can be 2 or 3 coats to apply and cure over a 3-day run. FS15 can be 1 to 2 coats over 1 day. There's 2 days in saving per man hour, or per man hour. So the contract times are a lot shorter. So at 1 millimeter, on average for our 25 kilogram pail, we get 13.5 to 14 meters squared of coverage. A 25 kilogram pail at 1.6 dry film thickness will give you only 10 square meters. So you can see a greater difference coming out, and there's a very defined pattern in the saving we can provide and the protection we can give because of that saving is vastly different to the market.
Yeah.
So when we come to the DFT and spread rate of FS15 to competitors, this is quite a defining chart, because I will only put data in a presentation or talk about data of someone else's product if I have it or if I've seen it, but mainly if I have that data on hand. That if I state a comment about another product, then I can quite easily produce that data and show the client that it's there and it's proof. So as we discussed earlier, there's two types of approvals. One is just fire propagation, and that is FM's 1.6 millimeter dry film thickness test. That's only applying a coating to stop a spread of flame along a cable surface. There is no time frame for it, there's no hourly ratings, there's nothing. It's just simply a stop spread of flame. So it's the fire propagation on the cable. The other is for actual fire rating of a cable to continue its integrity, to keep the lights on, the stairwells in a fire, all the signage, all of those sort of things, machines running, all to get staff out and protect assets. So we look towards those fire rating tests. A lot of test facilities such as UL do not have the capability of testing electrical cable in such a test. So that's why we go to BRE in the UK, who test to the IEC equivalent of a fire rating of an electrical cable. So when we look at the fire propagation, or just the stop spread of flame, FS15 only needs 1 to 2 coats. Now 1 to 2 coats, I mean the top side of a tray, as we saw before, that's a 1 coat situation. It can take a heavier coat. There's no lagging or sagging of the coating or dripping, so you can spray a heavy coat straight over, but the underside you may put 2 coats on because you don't want anything to drip down. Everything is presentable. So it all comes down to how it's presented back to the client. The client gives us orange or black cable in tray, and we want to give them that, and it all looks lovely, and we want to give them white cable in a tray after coating, and it still looks lovely with 0 overspray. So our competitors at 1.6, whether it's Standback's Firex EC42 or EC43 or KBS coating or Hilti's coatings, they are all 2 to 3 coats. Standback, sorry, theirs is an absolute stated 6 to 7 coats. Now, 1 coat of FS15 to 6 or 7 coats of your competitor means that man or that team is going to be on site 6 times longer than you will be.
Yeah.
It still takes that day to cure. So when you're looking at Standback's product, we can be looking at us to spray 1 pallet one day, walk away, then to spray the same definitive film thickness for the fire propagation of cable for 7 days. That's a lot of man hours, and that's a lot of cost back to the client for the same type of approval. When we move to these,
it's impressive.
It's very good. We're very happy with the performance of our FS15. So when we look at fire rating of tests for our IEC 331, so 60 and 90 minutes, we're still at 1 millimeter dry film thickness. We don't need to move to 2 millimeters. It's tested and approved by BRE. So we're still at that 1 to 2 coat system for the fire rating of a cable. For Standback, there's 16 to 17 coats at 3.5 millimeters. Now the stated fact is that there's 6 to 7 coats at 1.6 on a calculation basis at 3.5 millimeters dry film thickness for their fire rating of an electrical cable of 16 to 17 coats. I can't imagine an applicator spraying 16 to 17 times to build a film thickness long enough, but that still means that if a company is looking to fire rate their cables, you are looking at 1 coat in 1 day for us, or nearly 3 weeks for your competitor to do the same amount of project.
It's amazing.
Same with KBS coating. KBS coating has a 3.6 millimeter dry film thickness for its IEC rating, achievable up to 52 minutes, but it takes 6 to 7 coats to achieve that thickness, because suddenly your cable coating, which should be a low build coating, single 1 or 2 coats, has become a high build coating where you're anywhere between 6 to 17 layers of coating to achieve that designated thickness. That can't be good for the end user, especially when you can spray FS15, 1 to 2 coats, and you walk away. So, as I've noted at the bottom of the page, you'll see that FS15 is tested and approved DFT for fire propagation and fire rating of 1 millimeter from BRE Global in the UK. Fire ratings up to 90 minutes at 1 millimeter DFT as well. We can always go back. Sometimes we will find that a client, regardless of our approval systems, is insured by Factory Mutual or FM Global, and they do require FM cable coating to be at 1.6 millimeter dry film thickness. We do that, of course, but that means that that client is still going to be paying 60% more in product, even with FS15.
Yep.
So for application information, as we discussed, it can be completed by spray or brush, whether on single grouped or cables in trays. So the application or the preparation, which is all on our website, which is www.fire-security.net, in our download section, outlines all of our application requirements. But in a nutshell, we have to make sure that the cables are clean and free of dust and oils. And that could be just vacuuming those cables, wiping those cables with a dry rag. But if there is oil on those cables, that oil must be removed, because that means that you're not going to get adhesion between the cable jacket and the cable coating if there's oil in between. You can take that oil off with a dry rag or a soapy rag or cloth. That will usually remove it. And the application, once the cables are clean, we just simply spray a fog coat or a tack coat on for adhesion, very light, which will be dry before you finish spraying the other end, and then you put your final coat on. And that's where I come.
How long does that take to have basically placed?
By the time you finish your fog coat, you're ready to spray your heavy coat. It would take maybe possibly an hour, if that, to do a for a micron thickness fog coat to cure. It's only only an adhesion coat. And then you'll after that spray or fog coat, then you spray your final coat. Like I said, in the tops of trays, you don't really have to put a fog coat down. You can easily put 1.3 millimeters dry film, wet film thickness down, and then it will cure to the 1 millimeter. And if you remember, we were discussing the densities of product where we were looking at approximately 70% solids. In its wet state, it's 1.3 millimeters wet film to achieve a 1 millimeter dry film. So it's reducing itself 30% approximately. For cables in trays, as we said, you don't need to coat every cable, only the exterior surface of the tray. Once the tray is coated, there is no oxygen between the cables for the flame to ignite or burn or propagate, and flame will only spread on the outer surface of the cable or the outer tray or the cable surface, because that's where the oxygen is. Fire does not work without oxygen. So it's a very simple process that is not a highly technical situation as far as how flame will spread. It needs the fuel, which is the cable. It needs the oxygen, and it needs the heat, which is the fire. It's a typical fire triangle scenario. You take one of those things away, and we take the fire away because it can't breathe. There's nowhere to spread, and we take the oxygen away because we have the chemical reaction. So it's simply got nowhere to go. So here, back on our application side, these are typical machines. These are I always recommend our Graco machines. We don't sell them. We can get them if required, but usually we look at anything that's got around a 3,300 psi. And now these are electricals. These are plug-ins straight into the wall, and away they go. So they don't need compressors and everything else for that customer. These are mobile. All they need is a wall socket. And basically you'll put your 25 kilogram pail under the pump feed here. You'll take out all of your filters out of the machinery, because there is binders within the cable coating, and they will block a filter. You'll take the filter out of the gun and put your tips in, and then you're away. You're spraying. Once in a while.
How long can the extension be of the material hose?
The 50 to 100 feet.
Okay.
Yep. So you usually get around 50 feet hoses come as a standard with the gun and the machine. The machines are ready to use. They come with the machinery, the hoses, the guns. The only thing you have to do effectively is take out the filters, prime the machine, stir the coating, put the coating under the machine, and spray. It's a very ready-made system for on-site mobility. So with our applications of FS15, here you will see it's a typical drawing of showing, which we send out quite regularly, showing how the cable coating is applied. So if we're looking at a single cable, effectively we coat the entire surface of that cable to stop spread of flame. Usually if it's a high voltage cable, this will be sitting on a concrete floor, and you'll come along and you'll spray right down and underneath that. I have seen in some instances that some customers want to tape either side of that cable on the concrete itself, sort of anywhere 2 or 3 centimeters away from the cable, and then they spray that area. It's not overly necessary at all, but they do that to make it look nice. If you're looking,
if it is on the floor, how do we get it underneath it?
There's no need. You've got concrete there. There's simply, you were talking about that cable is actually sitting on possibly 1 millimeter of surface area.
Okay.
So maybe the base of that high voltage cable is not getting coated at the base point of 1 millimeter. And without oxygen as well. So there's basically no feed of oxygen for any flame to spread at that base point.
Yeah, understood.
When you're looking at a trefoil situation, you are just simply coating the outside of the cable once again. Now these are 3. What you see here in the top section is you are looking at the standard cable tray configuration. It could be full, it could be 60% full, 80% full, but you're effectively just encasing the external surface of that tray. If, though, you're looking at trays that are only carrying maybe 10 cables, 5 cables, then what we would prefer, if possible, to do is to bundle those cables to one side of the tray, and then with a site electrician doing that for you, and then you spray that bundle only.
Okay. And the tray just below it. And
just top side and base, everything. Yep. So you're encasing that complete cable system. Now, if what you'll also find a lot of the times in sites is that the cable tray is up against the wall. What we do in these instances is usually anywhere between 25 to 50 millimeters to 80 millimeters off the wall. There's no way that you can get a spray machine, a spray gun in behind there to spray that coating. It's just not possible. So what we do is we fill the base of that full with rock wool. We can use our FS15 panel, raw, all coated, place it up and underneath the tray along the side of the wall, and then we coat the exterior surface of that. And usually we can come out to make it nice and pretty. It comes out sort of 5 centimetres from the base of the rock wool out onto the concrete. So it's just a nice clean line. And you'll still have complete heat dissipation out of the sides and the top of that tray. But we have to do this because there's no way that you can physically get even sometimes your hand to the back, even with a handful of coating to put on the back of the cables. The area is just not possible, so we put rock wool down behind, and that gives protection to the back of the cables.
And you put FS15 on the side of the rock wool panel?
Yes, yeah, that FS15 comes all the way along the down and across. Mm-hmm. So it always does so because FS15 is completing and sealing that whole system from flame spread.
Yeah.
So when this is probably the most, apart from the technicalities of FS15, this is probably one of the most important situations when we're looking at quoting and how to specify and how to understand how I can achieve how many pails it's going to get to finish this work. So in calculating and specifying or quoting FS15 or any other cable coating for that matter, FS11, you have to calculate based on the meters squared, not kilograms or pails. A lot of the times we'll get emails in saying, can you please quote 5,000 kilograms or 200 kilograms of coating for supply. Well, how many square meters of cable tray are you trying to protect? This is a very important piece of information we require, and also the client requires. So, you know, there's always, other suppliers have different packaging. So you'll never get an exact quantity of, that you require for that application without knowing the meters squared. And so if you base
if you have to apply 16 coats or 4 to 6 coats, it's different than one.
It's a huge, huge, huge difference. And the only one that's going to suffer is the end user if the right question isn't asked. And you know, many times someone will say, can you give me a price for 1 pail of coating? I need to calculate out how many kilograms I need. Well, how many square meters are you actually requiring? So usually I don't give them the price of the pail, I give them the price of the square meter, which works out a lot better for them, because then they go away and say, okay, I've got 1,000 square meters. Well, I need 2,400 kilograms. So instead of 3,500 or 4,500 kilograms of our competitor, which is a vast, vast difference. So we base our requirement of getting the cable coating on a meter squared surface of area of tray and or the diameter of a single cable. So you will always get a correct required quantity. So as I've outlined here, and you'll see, for instance, if you get an email or a customer requires a request for a quotation for 5,000 kilograms of coating, which is, this is precisely why it's here, because this has happened, without an area, the ratios are very different. For FS15, 5,000 kilograms is 200 25 kilogram pails. This will give you a total area of 2,084 meters squared of cable tray surface or cable to cover, and that includes wastage. So that's running at our 2.4 kilograms per square meter, including wastage spread rate. For and I really have picked on Stanback's Firex 43 here, but KBS Hilti 3M, Nelson coatings, they're all the same. 5,000 kilograms is 250 20 kilogram pails. So this will give you a total of 1,112 meters squared of area to cover. Now that's approximately half the thickness Now, not only is it half the product, or half the thickness, there's also a 1 to 2 coat situation with FS15, 3 to 4 coat with everyone else. With Standvec, you're looking at 6 or 7 coats. So you're not only looking at less product, you're not only looking at less freight, you're also looking at less man days and man hours to put on the product as well. So you're less product, less cost, less time on site, walk away, and the client has his completed work. So therefore FS15 will cover approximately twice the amount of cables than its competitors. And as I've stated here, we only require the following to estimate the quantities: width of tray, height of tray, length of tray. For single cables, not in tray, we only need the OD and the length.
And for cable bundles?
Sorry?
For cable bundles?
For cable bundles, the same. We would look at that OD situation again. Because it's otherwise it becomes difficult. You can't work it out on a tray calculation. You would have to work it out on an OD or a pi.
So if you have 5 cables in a cable bundle, you take basically 5 times the OD and calculate the area.
Yeah, that's exactly what we would do. And really, all we're really doing is taking the 100 mil OD, timesing it by 3.14, which is pi, and then timesing that by the length, and there's your square meter.
Right.
That's your square meter rate. It's a very simple calculation, but then we also have full costing sheets that all you have to do is put in your tray width or your tray height or your tray or your cable OD. It calculates everything for you with wastage. So we may put those on our download section of our website, so a customer can come and download that, walk around, and plug in his figures into his Excel spreadsheet, and then send it off to us, and he knows straight away that he's got 130 cables. The only thing he's got to get from us is a freight quotation. So it's a very simple process as long as it's done right. It can be done immediately for our end user. Their answers, you always want to make sure our answers to our end users are within 2 or 3 days. The longest thing that we should have to wait for is a freight quotation, not our actions.
Right.
So when we're quoting, we always have to remember to quote on meters squared. We'll keep the product quantities based on your actual requirements, not on kilograms of coatings that sits in your warehouse without use. And remember, always ask for quotations including wastage. So you just don't want to leave anyone coming back to you saying, hey, I do not have enough coating. Well, that's because you wanted an exact figure and you didn't want wastage. So we always include wastage. A lot of companies don't include wastage because it makes them look better. Mm-hmm. But they never they never tell you about the issues that they may have with the end user after the fact because they were short in product.
Right.
And wastage can simply be not just overspray on cables or smaller cables with a larger fan spray. It can be knocking over a pail of coating. It can be an installer who's not taking that pump, the head of the pump, all the way to the bottom of the pail, not scraping out the pail and taking the last 3 kilograms that were sitting there. I've seen that a lot on site. When there's larger projects, the applicators don't go to the bottom of the pail. They just move them off and put in a new pail. And at the end of the day, there could be up to 10 or 20 full pails of coating left in wastage. So that can be quite a lot of money that's being spent that's not getting done.
Right.
So it's very important. Obviously, the technicalities of the product have to meet the requirement of the customer, which we do for all fire protection needs of the protection of electrical cables. But we also save the end user in installation times, in film thicknesses. So with FS15, there is a complete package offered to the end user that saves them time, saves them money, and gets their plant operational within the shortest period of possible. But on top of that, we also, you know, one of the things, as long as your machine is earthed, you're spraying live cable anyway. This is not a business interruption product. It can fix a business interruption as far as a fire in a substation after the fact, but spraying FS15 does not interrupt your business. You can do it live while that substation's running without issue.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So, my friend, do you have any questions?
Well, I think I asked them.
And we got them all covered, did we?
I think so, yes, we did.
Okay, well that's good. So I guess obviously there might be some questions as far as where's our product located. Our products are located in Hamburg, Germany, in our warehousing there, and also now in Houston, in Texas, in the USA. We will soon be carrying product in Dubai, in Australia. So what we're trying to do through our warehousing and logistics situation is make sure that that product is readily available anywhere in the world for any customer. So not only, you know, we really want to keep to that situation of time is money. So, you know, thin film coating, nearly the thinnest in the market, if not the thinnest in the market. Low spread rates, low man hours, low time to site. Everything is to save that customer that extra dollar. So, do you have any further questions, Rito?
No, not right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the talk.
If you're interested, we can all do it again for our FS15 and for our penetration seals, and of course for our structural steel coatings.
Would love to do that. Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll organise that time. So thank you very much. I appreciate you listening to me. And,
thank you, Sean.
I will speak to you soon.
All right.
All the best.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.